November 24, 1971. Portland International Airport. Rain slid down the terminal windows like slow tears. Inside the airport, travelers rushed home for Thanksgiving. Laughter. Suitcases rolling. Families reuniting. And then there was him. A man in a dark business suit. Black tie. White shirt. Polished shoes. Calm. Invisible. He approached the counter of Northwest Orient Airlines and purchased a one-way ticket under the name Dan Cooper. Destination, Seattle. The flight number, 305. He paid in cash. No suspicion. Then he made his next demand. The plane must take off again. Destination, Mexico City. But with specific instructions. Fly low, 10,000 feet. Fly slow. Landing gear down. Rear stairs accessible. Why? The Boeing 727 had something unique. A rear stairway that could be lowered mid-flight. Most passengers didn't know that. But Cooper did. Into the night. At 7:40 p.m., the plane took off again. Only Cooper and the flight crew remained on board. Somewhere over Washington state. A warning light flashed in the cockpit. The rear stairs had been activated. The plane shuddered slightly. Air rushed in violently. Rain and wind screamed into the cabin. And somewhere in that darkness, Dan Cooper jumped. Into a storm. Into freezing wilderness. Into history. He was never seen again. The biggest question. Did he survive? Did he die in the forest? Or did he pull off the perfect crime? The FBI would search for decades. And the mystery of D.B. Cooper would become legendary. But this was only the beginning. The moment the rear stairs dropped mid-air, everything changed. Inside the cockpit of Flight 305, the pilots felt a sudden shift in balance. The aircraft jerked upward, then steadied. It was 8:13 p.m. Somewhere over the dark forests of Washington state. D.B. Cooper had jumped. Into freezing rain. Into 200-mile-per-hour winds. Into total darkness. No lights below. No witnesses. Just endless wilderness. The immediate shock. The plane landed safely in Reno, Nevada. Authorities rushed on board. The money was gone. 2 parachutes were gone. Cooper was gone. Only a black clip-on tie remained on seat 18C. That tie would later become one of the most important clues in the case. But at that moment, panic. The FBI launched one of the largest manhunts in American history. Operation NORJAK. The case was officially named NORJAK. Northwest Hijacking. Hundreds of FBI agents spread across forests near the suspected jump zone between Seattle and Portland. Helicopters scanned the trees. Search teams combed through miles of rugged terrain. Divers checked rivers. Nothing. No body. No parachute. No money. No bones. No sign of a crash landing. If he jumped there, he either survived or disappeared completely. Experts later described the conditions that night. Heavy rain. Strong winds. Freezing temperatures. Mountainous terrain. No proper skydiving gear. No helmet. Business shoes. A heavy bag of cash. Many believed he couldn't have survived. But some investigators weren't so sure. Because Cooper had asked very specific technical questions before takeoff. He knew the aircraft's flap settings. He knew how to operate the rear stairs. He even rejected a military parachute and chose civilian ones. That suggested knowledge. Training. Possibly military background. Possibly a former paratrooper. This wasn't a random man. This was someone prepared. Rumors exploded nationwide. Was he a Vietnam veteran? A disgruntled airline employee? A professional skydiver? A criminal mastermind? The media mistakenly reported his name as D.B. Cooper instead of Dan Cooper. And the name stuck. A legend was born overnight. People admired him. He didn't hurt anyone. He was polite. Calm. Almost gentlemanly. Some even saw him as a folk hero. The tie that spoke. Back in the FBI lab, investigators studied the black tie left behind. It contained microscopic metal particles. Rare industrial elements. Titanium. Special alloys. This suggested Cooper may have worked in aerospace or advanced engineering. Possibly near Seattle, a hub for aircraft manufacturing. The puzzle deepened. The man wasn't just lucky. He was calculated. Years pass. Searches continued. Thousands of leads poured in. Over 800 suspects were investigated. None confirmed. The money never surfaced in circulation. Until 9 years later. Something shocking happened, February 1980. A young boy digging on the banks of the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington made a discovery. He found 3 bundles of decaying $20 bills. The serial numbers matched the ransom money. $5,800 in total. Buried in sand. Far from the main search zone. How did it get there? Was it planted? Did the river carry it? Or did Cooper survive long enough to bury it himself? The FBI was stunned. But even this discovery solved nothing. It only deepened the mystery. The question grew. By the mid-1970s, the mystery of D.B. Cooper had turned from a manhunt into an obsession. The FBI had investigated hundreds of men. Most were quickly cleared. But a few names refused to disappear. And each one brought the case closer to the truth. Or deeper into confusion. Suspect number 1, the engineer. One of the earliest serious suspects was a former aerospace engineer who had experience with aircraft systems. Investigators believed Cooper's knowledge of the Boeing 727 wasn't random. He knew the rear stair system, the flap settings, the exact altitude to request, the fuel range of the aircraft. That level of detail suggested technical training. Seattle, at the time, was home to major aircraft manufacturing industries. If Cooper worked in aerospace, he would have known the 727 secret rear stairs could be lowered mid-flight. But the engineer suspect had an alibi. And no direct evidence tied him to the crime. Suspect number 2, the skydiver. Another strong theory was that Cooper was an experienced parachutist. But here's the twist. Professional skydivers later examined the parachute he chose. And they were confused. He didn't choose the best parachute available. He rejected a professional one and took a basic civilian model instead. That raised a strange possibility. Maybe he wasn't a professional skydiver at all. Maybe he was confident, but not expert. Or maybe he never planned to survive the jump. Suspect number 3, the man who almost confessed. Years later, a man named Richard McCoy was arrested for a very similar hijacking. He also hijacked a Boeing 727. Demanded ransom. Used parachutes. Jumped mid-air. The similarities were shocking. But there was one major problem. McCoy was physically different from witness descriptions. And he had a confirmed alibi placing him elsewhere on the night of Cooper's hijacking. Still, some believe he had help. Or that authorities dismissed him too quickly. The third. Also empty. Whitmore stepped back slowly. 3 graves. No bodies. And beneath the house. Scratch marks reaching upward. Jonathan Caldwell's final days. That night, Whitmore confronted Margaret. "Where is your husband buried?" Her face paled. "In Montgomery," she said quickly. "That's not true." She turned toward the window. "You opened the graves. They're empty." Silence. Then she spoke softly. "Jonathan did not believe in superstition. Neither do I. He believed everything had explanation." Whitmore's jaw tightened. "And?" Margaret's voice cracked. "He began digging first." A chill ran down Whitmore's spine. "For what?" "For the sound." "The sound." Margaret described it in fragments. Low vibrations beneath the house at night. The well humming. Livestock refusing to approach the back fields. Workers claiming they heard voices calling their names from the soil. Jonathan dismissed it as hysteria. Until the workers began vanishing. Not running away. Vanishing. Beds untouched. Belongings left behind. As if erased. Jonathan thought they were hiding in the woods, Margaret whispered. But then he heard it too. Whitmore leaned closer. "Heard what?" Margaret closed her eyes. His own voice. Calling from beneath the floor. Whitmore decided to unseal the well. Against Margaret's protests. He pried off the old boards at dusk. The smell that rose was not rot. Not decay. But something ancient. Stagnant air that had not touched sunlight for decades. He lowered a lantern slowly on rope. The light descended into darkness. 15 feet. 20. Then. It swung. As if something had brushed it. Whitmore steadied the rope. He squinted downward. And for a fraction of a second. He saw movement. Not rising. Descending. As if something had crawled down deeper when the light approached. He pulled the lantern back up. The rope came back frayed. Partially burned. Though no flame had touched it. By the 2000s, the legend of D.B. Cooper had become almost mythological. Books were written. Documentaries aired. Amateur investigators obsessed over every detail. But one name began rising above all others. A suspect that many believed fit almost perfectly. The most convincing suspect, Robert Rackstraw. In the late 1970s, a former Army pilot named Robert Rackstraw caught the FBI's attention. He had military training, parachuting experience, explosives knowledge, a history of deception and fraud, the right age, the right physical description. Rackstraw was intelligent, calm, calculated. Exactly like Cooper. Investigators discovered he had used fake identities before. He even had a criminal record involving aircraft. Some independent researchers believed coded messages in letters sent to newspapers were linked to him. But there was no definitive proof. No fingerprints matched. No money was found in his possession. And eventually, the FBI publicly ruled him out. Yet many private investigators still believe he was the closest match. The secret letters. After the hijacking, mysterious letters were sent to newspapers claiming to be from Cooper. Most were dismissed as hoaxes. But some contained details only the hijacker would know. One letter included cryptic symbols. Another hinted that Cooper had planned the jump carefully. Were they real? Or just attention seekers trying to become part of history? No confirmed letter was ever proven authentic. But the mystery deepened. The forensic breakthrough. Decades later, modern science reopened the case. The black clip-on tie left on seat 18C was re-examined using advanced forensic techniques. Scientists found rare metal particles embedded in it. Not just common industrial dust. But specific elements used in aerospace manufacturing during the 1960s and 70s. This was significant. At that time, Seattle was a major aerospace hub. It suggested Cooper may have worked in a high-level technical environment. Possibly even involved with aircraft design. If that's true, he may have known exactly how survivable that jump was. The geography problem. One of the biggest puzzles was the jump location. The original search zone may have been wrong. Wind calculations from that night were later found to be inaccurate. Some experts believe Cooper landed miles away from where the FBI searched. Possibly near a road. Possibly near civilization. Possibly in a location he had chosen in advance. If that's true, he could have walked out within hours. No dramatic survival story. No wilderness death. Just a quiet escape. The money mystery. In 1980, the boy who found the $5,800 along the Columbia River changed everything. The bills were decaying but still bundled with rubber bands. But here's the strange part. The money appeared to have been buried intentionally. It wasn't scattered. It wasn't washed randomly. 3 bundles. Together. Some believe Cooper buried it himself. Others think flooding moved it from somewhere else. But if he survived, why leave any money behind? Was it an accident? A lost portion? Or a clue? The theory that changes everything. Imagine this. A quiet suburban home in the late 1980s. An older man sits in his living room. News plays on the television. A reporter says. The mystery of D.B. Cooper continues. The man smiles slightly. Sips his drink. And says nothing. Because sometimes, the greatest thrill isn't the money. It's knowing you outsmarted everyone. But one final mystery remains. Did he survive the jump physically? Or did he die in the forest, leaving behind only legend? In the final part, we explore the survival probability, the psychological profile, the final FBI conclusion, and the haunting reason why the case may never be solved. November 24, 1971. A man boarded a plane. A few hours later, he stepped into a storm and vanished. More than 50 years later, the mystery of D.B. Cooper remains unsolved. But now, we ask the final question. Did he survive? Or did the legend survive, while the man did not? The survival question. Experts have debated the jump for decades. Here's what we know. It was nighttime. It was raining. Winds were strong. Temperature at 10,000 feet was near freezing. He wore a business suit and loafers. He carried 21 pounds of cash. To some, survival seems impossible. But others argue differently. The terrain below wasn't all mountains. There were logging roads. Cleared area. There are only 2 realistic possibilities. Theory 1, he died that night. He miscalculated. The wind carried him into rough terrain. He landed badly. Succumbed to injuries or hypothermia. His body hidden by wilderness. Never found. If that's true, then D.B. Cooper was brave. But not perfect. Theory 2, he survived. He landed successfully. Walked to safety. Changed identity. Blended into society. Lived decades anonymously. Watched the news. Read the books. Heard people debate his fate. And smiled. If that's true, then he committed one of the greatest unsolved crimes in American history. Why the legend endures. The story of D.B. Cooper fascinates people for one reason. He vanished. No violence. No ego. No explanation. In a world where most criminals are caught. He wasn't. He stepped backward into darkness. And the darkness kept him. The final image. Imagine the moment. The rear stairs open. Cold air rushes in. Rain slashes across the cabin. Below him, miles of black forest. Above him, nothing but storm clouds. He grips the parachute. Tightens the money bag. And without hesitation, he jumps. That is the last confirmed moment of D.B. Cooper. Everything after that is mystery.